to the Meant for More Mindset podcast. I'm Yar. As a peak performance coach and lifestyle architect, I help women who are ready to reach their next level, eliminate negative self-talk, and break through what's been holding them back so they can have clarity, confidence, and prosperity in their career and lifestyle. This podcast is to empower you with a Meant for More mindset and help you reach your next level so you can uncover your purpose, reclaim your power, and reach your potential. This means no longer living by default, but dreaming big and pushing yourself to be, do, and have more. I want everyone to know that change is possible, that you are not alone, and there is an alternative way forward. Because when you change your mind, it will change your life. Hi everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Meant for More Mindset podcast with me, Yar. And today I have the lovely Sandra Harewood with me. Sandra, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on. It's really lovely to be here with you. So my name is Sandra Harewood, and I am a psychotherapeutic counsellor, couples counsellor, and coach. And I work with a variety of couples, and my speciality is relationships. But I particularly like working with couples in midlife who are finding themselves at the crossroads in their relationship because of a crisis, and I support them to figure out what they want to do next, whether it's to repair and refresh and reconnect the relationship, or whether to let go with grace and a relative amount of peace.
That sounds very, very, very interesting. But before we delve into that, can you tell us something interesting about you that most people don't know?
Oh, I was thinking about this. So I think the thing I am really fascinated with dreams. Ever since I was a little girl, I can remember going to school and telling people, "Oh, this is what I dreamt last night." But actually, I record my dreams every single day when I wake up. Record my dreams. Because they really are a compass of our in a world, and if we can really capture what the dream is actually saying and interpret it, it's really amazing how these weird objects and images and just strange stories actually do relate to our lives. And it seems to be a family thing. I just got back from the Caribbean not too long ago, and I was talking to my aunt, and she was saying how she has a lot of predictive dreams. She dreams things and they actually literally come true. I'm not quite like that. I have to kind of work them out, but I think they're super, super, super fascinating.
It also sounds like a superpower. Yeah, sounds amazing.
Oh, okay.
No, it does. It really, really
Thought
does.
about it that way, but yeah.
So to get into a little bit about you, can you tell us, share with us what your story is and how you got to where you are today?
Okay, so I've been a counsellor now for 12 years, but before that I was in environmental health. It was a completely different career. And I was a manager, and I noticed that my team was sharing with me lots of things that they weren't necessarily sharing with or had shared with other managers, and they were really quite sharing aspects of their lives with me. And I thought, oh, why is that? What is it about me that they're actually willing to actually open up and share with me in that way? So that was my kind of first kind of glimpse that, maybe I'm quite good at listening and actually allowing people to feel comfortable enough to do that. But the major thing came for me was in a very short period of time, I got married, I had a baby, moved house, and there was all these very significant transitional things going on for me. And it was a real who am I moment, a real questioning my identity. And at that time, that was the first point that I really began to experience for myself what it meant to have mental health challenges, right? So, and I remember going to the doctor. So it was depression, or back in those days, they called it baby blues because it was after the birth of my son.
Mm.
And she gave me two pieces of advice, right? So she gave me she said, get a cleaner. And I thought, oh my God, what is this woman telling me? You know, I've come to her to tell her that I'm feeling really fragile. She's telling me get a cleaner. But how I've come to think about it is I think what she was actually telling me was get help, get support. You don't have to do it on your own. And she didn't use that language, but I think that's how I now choose to see that experience, about some things you don't have to do on your own. And the card she gave me was a card for a counsellor. And I didn't use it for the purpose intended. I didn't go to a counsellor, but what I did do was enroll on a counselling course. So I enrolled on a course, and it was actually that experience of learning what counselling was about and really being seen by the lecturers who themselves were counsellors, and really opened me up to say, oh, this could be really helpful. So then I went on to do my professional training as a counsellor, and then went on to specialise with working with couples, because I think that our relationships are the foundation of everything that we do. That's not just about being in one-to-one. We're always in relationship, whether we're at work with a work colleague, a relationship with our family members, a relationship with our children. And I think couples work is really important to creating and learning some of those kind of tools that we don't learn as children. No one teaches us these things. We just think we fall into it, and we learn it as we go along. But actually, it's a real craft, I think, being in a good, healthy relationship.
Yeah, it is. And I really loved what you said about the fact that you essentially used the healing of yourself to then go ahead and help others. Have you always had that kind of I guess it is the superpower as well, that kind of energy where you want to help others as well as helping yourself?
Well, I think that I do have young memories at school of wanting to help and support other friends in my class. But I think that a lot of therapists, and I do know for myself, we have this kind of concept called the wounded healer,
Mm.
which means that it is from that position of being vulnerable yourself that you can really sit with and be present to somebody else's um, vulnerability. And it's important. You don't have to have the exact experience that your client is having, but I think it is important to be able to own your own vulnerabilities and your own challenges in life, so that
Mm.
you can sit and kind of meet and have empathy for others.
And in terms of going through like your where you went through depression and mental health issues, how then were you able to work through it to get to a place where you are able to help others heal?
Well, I think that, one, it was about getting support. So it was indirect. It wasn't actually at that time through the counselling sessions, but it was actually being able to, and I think this is what therapy is about, it's being able to give voice. I think once I was able to actually give voice to this is what I am experiencing,
Mhm.
then lots of things shift. But when you're carrying around something inside of you, that can be a very lonely, isolating place. And so now that's why I think it's so super important that people do reach out and see counselling as a way of supporting them, because I don't think you can underestimate what it feels like to um, one, hear yourself speak, but two, to allow yourself to hear someone else and witness, because it's a lot of it's about kind of witnessing a kind of journey that people go on with their mental health, which can show up in various ways. But I am a true believer that it's important for therapists to have had some experience of therapy, so that they know what, knows what it's scary sometimes to sit in that chair as a client. You walk in, you talk to a complete stranger. And that takes a lot of guts and courage, I think, for
Yeah.
someone to be willing to actually do that.
Yeah, and it sounds like it also takes a lot of trust. So in terms of helping your clients along, what do you think like motivates you to continue to help your clients?
Um, well, I just think it's just such a wonderful thing. I think so many of us are walking around underestimating our capacities and our gifts, and or just hiding under a bushel, right? Thinking that, or thinking that there's something wrong with us, that nobody else is going through that experience. So many people do have mental health challenges. I think we talk about 1 in 6 people. I often say to people, go to the supermarket, and when you're standing in the queue and you look around and you see 3 people in front of you, 3 people behind you, the likelihood that someone in that queue is going through maybe not the exact experience that you are, but they'll be going through their stuff. They'll be going through their stuff
Yeah.
too, right? And so I think it's really powerful to kind of witness when people have those aha moments, and they get what's been either limiting them, or maybe what they've been tolerating that they don't need to, or just to be able to feel that they know how to self-regulate uh, and manage their symptoms in a way that they can actually get through their day and they can actually do what they want to do. I think it's a real privilege, I think, to be able to do that work, and kind of witness people being able to make those shifts in their lives, whether it takes 6 weeks, whether it takes 6 months, whether it takes 6 years. It takes the time it takes.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And with in terms of mental health, it's still quite a taboo subject, but I see it as I see like things like therapy, counseling, coaching as forms of self-care. So how do you help people kind of get over that hurdle of where they're like, well, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here kind of thing. And everybody knows why they're there, but it's that kind of
Mm.
thing of where they want to feel safe in that environment, but scared at the same time.
And I think really, so, a lot of the time it's just honoring that. It's just meeting people where they are,
Yeah.
and honoring, as I said before, that actually, it does take a lot of courage, um, to start therapy, coaching. And I think sometimes just naming that,
Mm.
just naming that's normal, that's okay. I often do say to people, you've never met me before. You've absolutely never met me before. And maybe it's absolutely reasonable
Mm.
that actually you don't trust me in the moment. And maybe that's something that needs to be developed and acquired, right? And maybe that's um absolutely normal. Absolutely normal. And it's just about it, just honoring that. And it is about creating um a safe a safe space so that people do feel able to open up and share, and just acknowledging the stories that might make it difficult,
Mm.
to share.
Yeah, no, I think I think that's really, really important. I'm gonna scoot back a little bit and I know you mentioned earlier that you went from one career, a very different career to the career that you're in now. What prompted
Mm.
that change?
Well, I think that midlife was one. But I think we do go through transitional points in our lives,
Yeah.
right? Where we do think, oh, what next? What do I want to, what do I want to do? But for me, as I said, I was quite, what I mentioned before in terms of, um, having my son and just noticing about people being able to have these conversations with me at work. I'd actually started training as a therapist whilst I was still doing that job. And so actually what it supported me to do, I wasn't there to provide counselling to my team and my colleagues, but it did kind of sharpen um, my communication skills, my listening skills, my empathy, when someone, you never know what someone's coming to work with. You never know what someone has left behind when they walk into the office door. So it allowed me really to sit with that kind of mindset a little bit more and that kind of compassion about you just don't know. You don't know what someone's walking around with. Um, but I was already going on onto that training, and then an opportunity came up for me to take redundancy, and I thought, okay, maybe now's the time. So it was a bit of a leap of faith because I had to go on to set up my private practice. And I didn't have a stream of clients at that point. So there was this transitional phase where I was still doing a little bit of environmental health work whilst I was building up my therapy practice. But it was more of a leap of faith than anything else, and actually a real desire to want to do something different.
But that going back to, so going to, well, not even going back, staying on the idea of a leap of faith, because a lot of people don't take the leap of faith. They'll do the courses, they'll get the training, and then that's kind of where they stop. And then it can become a bunch of excuses. So what
Mm.
pushed you and motivated you, and more so inspired you to kind of keep going to get to where you are today?
Well, I suppose I had spent a long time in local government, and one of the motivations was is I actually wanted to work for myself. I
Mm.
wanted to actually see what it felt like to run my own business, and I did have other people who were running businesses in my world, and I've always wanted to do that, and I thought if I don't do it now, I'm not gonna do it at all.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's all that really comes to mind at the moment. But there was something about actually, it just felt like the right time. And it just felt that actually, if I don't do it now, that perhaps I would get caught back up in staying stuck and staying doing more of the same. I just wanted to see what else I could do to
Yeah,
stretch myself. And I can't imagine doing environmental health now, although I really did enjoy it at the time because they're completely different. But it just meant that I could um, engage with people in a different way. And as I said, I'm always taken aback about hearing people's stories. And so it's not, and I love that aspect of my work, which I wouldn't have been able to do doing what I was before.
yeah. What what do you wish you would have known at the beginning of your new career? Or actually, what would you have known generally what do you wish you would have known in the beginning that you think would have helped you along the way, helped you that much more, I guess?
In terms of the counselling or just in general?
In terms of you really. So it could have been the counselling, it could have been your career before, it could have been just it could be just general.
I think for me, in my previous I think what has been a thread is just being learning that it's something about giving, about having a voice for
Yeah.
me. I in in previous careers, I can remember going to business meetings and just sitting there and not necessarily saying something, and then someone would say something. I say, "Oh, I wish I'd said that actually." And I think there is something about learning to just be confident enough to step forward, and it's okay. It's okay. Whatever you do, there's always a learning. There's always a learning in something, and I think sometimes we can avoid the learning in the misstep, because we're so caught up in the fear of not doing something at all, and then we don't really progress. We
Yeah.
just stay stuck. So I suppose for me, particularly in my earlier career, I think it would have been more what would have been like to just be more of myself, give myself more of a voice, regardless of what anyone's gonna say.
So what advice would you have given yourself back then to say, you can speak up more?
Well, maybe just speak up.
And I think
It's okay.
no, yeah, no, and I think it's
Okay.
true. I think it's really true because and I think a lot of women do. I definitely have suffered from it where I didn't speak up, and you're just kind of like somebody says it, and you're just kind of, oh, well, I was going to say that, and then once you, it's like you said, once you say it, and it's getting over the idea of not wanting to look foolish in front of people. I think, and then once you're
Mm,
able to get over that idea of you look how you look, and 9 times out of 10 you don't look foolish, and even if you do, people don't remember. So it's really, I think it's really, really important to have that kind of self-awareness of like it's okay to get it wrong, because
mm,
you got something wrong, it doesn't make you the person wrong. So I guess,
absolutely.
is that something that you see that comes up a lot in terms of the people that you work with now?
Well, I think particularly in couples, I think that can always, I think one of the major issues with a couple of dynamic is people they don't speak up,
Mm,
right? And so people silence themselves, and then what happens? Resentment builds up over months, years, and then once that kind of sets hold, it becomes more difficult for couples to actually work through. And so I think, and also I think the other thing, what you're saying about self-awareness, I mean, a huge part of couples work is actually paradoxically self-awareness, because it's about awareness of who you are, what you want, what you desire, what you need, so that you can communicate that clearly to your partner, but also that you can remain open when they are communicating what is true of that for them to you. And often what happens, people, for whatever reason, get reticent to or are anxious about sharing what they really want from their relationship, and so they don't. And so self-awareness, and a lot of people don't actually, when you ask them what they want, many people don't actually know the answer to that question, actually. And so if you don't know the answer, then that is also difficult to communicate. And then we imagine that the other person can read our mind, and they can't. So it goes around in a bit of a loop. So, self-awareness, being able to have some agency and an autonomy, all those things are important in relationships. Um, and that becomes a benchmark to kind of fostering you have to foster the I in order to foster the we. They go, they go together.
no, that's very, very, very true. One of the things you mentioned there was anxiety. And I know one of the underlining things of anxiety is fear. And so
Mm.
how do you help people overcome those fears so that they're not anxious to say how they feel and, express themselves in relationships, and also even with themselves, to get to a point where they know what they want and then can communicate that with others?
Okay. Well, sometimes, well, I think first thing is we have to recognize when we are anxious, because I think a lot of us are walking around with a baseline level of anxiety that we wouldn't call anxiety,
Mhm.
right? So I think the first step has to become more in tune with one's emotions and feelings in the first instance, because we can become disconnected from them for a whole variety of reasons. We don't actually know how we feel, right? To actually know that anxiety and fear is present anyway. And then we have to learn to become in relationship with it. So some of that, and that's obviously depends on the level of anxiety and where it sits on a spectrum. But for many, it's about sitting with it. It's about actually knowing that once we engage with our emotions and once we can learn what they're trying to communicate to us, then we will know that that actual discomfort will pass,
Yeah.
right? That that we can actually move through it. Um, and you may well need tools to be able to do that. But the point being is that anxiety doesn't, in a relational sense, doesn't have to keep you stuck, right? And that actually, when you open up, sit with it, move through it, then it is possible to begin to open up and speak what's on your mind. Now, clearly, if you're in the more, abusive relationships, that wouldn't necessarily apply. Um, well, actually, let me take that back. What the anxiety maybe is telling you that maybe you have to leave. Maybe this is not healthy. But the baseline is that it's alerting you to something.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have to be aware of its presence. We have to be able to lean into it. We have to be able to say, okay, well, what is this trying to tell me,
Yeah.
so that I know what to do with it, which is either to learn to soothe and to navigate, and develop some resilience. Or as I said, it might be another message. It might be actually this is really telling me that this is not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really important. How do you, in terms of the journey that you take them on, how do you make them feel safe when they're going for anxiety? Because anxiety can be, very debilitating. It can cause panic attacks. It can make you irrational. So how do you guide somebody through that journey of anxiety to get to a point where they're okay and they understand that all it is anxiety. It's an awareness of something, but it doesn't actually mean that thing is happening.
Okay. Well, again, I mean, it all depends on the individual client, but it really, and some of this might be patience, because as I said, it takes as long as it takes. So I often say things are not necessarily an on-off switch. But I think it is a process of just slowly engaging with people, and actually, so first of all, it's just bringing them into relationship with it. And then just slowly working through, and what is this about? How does it feel in your body? What's happening when actually you're feeling this anxiety? When is it worse?
Mm.
But also allowing them to know their own capacities to self-soothe. So they might know, a client might know, well, actually, this is when I do this happens and it shifts. When I'm in this environment, it shifts. So that they know their own resources, their own inner resources to be able to actually engage, right? And sometimes it might be going to a GP to get some support, but it all really depends on, anxiety is going to be on a spectrum. And depending meeting the client, where the client is on that line.
Yeah, I think that's true. And in terms of, you mentioned resources there, which I think are really important. Um, what resources have helped you along the way in terms of your own journey? And this could be within your career or just for yourself, to help you get to where you are today.
Okay, well, there's such things. I mean, mindfulness
Hmm.
is really, really important for me, and practicing for myself. Just taking moments to stop and pause and engage with whatever's going on for me. So that also brings journaling. My dream work, which I alluded to at the beginning, is really important tool um, for me. But just being out in nature, I love, right? And I think it's nature's very therapeutic and healing and grounding, um, and just being in connection with others. I think community, and that brings us back to relationships, right? That relationships, we are all in relationship at all time, and that I think was the one of the hard things about COVID, because it
Yeah, separated us.
disrupted
Yeah,
all our connections, which we as human beings survive on. So I think that I try and practice what I preach in terms of like self-awareness. So all those kind of tools, I think are important, just as an ongoing journey of just discovering self and who I am, and how I want to be and where I'm going. I think all those things are super important.
yeah. And I think they're super important too. So the next question I have for you is, what's your greatest fear?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Um, Maybe my greatest fear has got nothing to do with therapy at all, but my greatest fear is that I I don't work in the diversity and equality forum, but I suppose my greatest fear is that change in terms of equality perhaps could go more quickly. I can think about when I was training as a therapist, and I think this is perhaps I think certain communities, and as someone from the Caribbean community, I can for sure speak for myself, that certain services aren't that easy to engage with or access. And I think, the therapist space, there's still some work to do in getting representation with um, therapists from different communities, from the Black community, so that the wider community feels comfortable with engaging with therapeutic services. And we were talking earlier about trust and feeling comfortable and what feels safe. So I suppose a fear is that change isn't happening quickly enough, but I am also hopeful that there's a lot of change that has been made over the years. And it's quite heartbreaking, really, whether it's suicide statistics or just the number of people from ethnic minority communities who are not engaging with services that could make real significant difference on their lives.
So in terms of, to be a little bit controversial, what would you think would help make that push that much better, or even happen that much quicker?
Well, I think the training courses, perhaps in terms of outreaching, but actually more so than that. I mean, the reality is that a lot of therapeutic models are based in from European um, models. There are different models which I wish I could remember the author, but I've just read a book from an African American author who's writing on um, couples therapy in the African American community, and he is an African American man. There's a psychotherapist, Aline, Elaine. I'll give you her proper name. She's just written a book in terms of the intergenerational trauma within the Black community. So there are things that are actually happening. There's an organisation called Barton who does a lot of work on the Black and Asian community, therapists, but also outreaching to the community. So there are things that are actually going on. And I think maybe there needs to be more of that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I'll also put that in the show notes. Once I get the information
Okay.
in the show notes so
All
that
right. Okay.
the audience will have it. And now conversely, and on a much lighter note, what excites you the most about the next 12 months?
Oh, it's like well, I've got lots of things happening. So I've written a book. So I've written it. So hopefully my intention within the next 12 months is that's going to be published. Haven't quite got a title yet, but it's for couples. And it's to help them improve communication. So the first part of the book is about giving an understanding about why communication is hard. So some of that's about attachment theory, some of that's about other concepts which are to do with what we project and what we overlay onto our partners, which means that we don't actually see them as they are. When you've got two people doing that, you can understand why there is miscommunication. So the first part is about just really understanding this is why, right? There's nothing wrong with you. This is why it potentially is a problem. Then there's some tools to actually, okay, this is what you can do to actually improve. And then the last part of the book is just some, it's 300 actually questions that you can actually use to actually just deepen that self-awareness of yourself, of your partner, and just foster intimacy. So I'm really super looking forward to getting that finally completed and published. So I'm excited about that. I am doing some new offers as well. So I'm going to be offering couples intensives, which means that and retreats, so that people can come and some people don't have the time to spend each week coming to couples therapy, and that can be a bit of a reason why they give that actually, we can't do this. But actually, if you can spend 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, just an intense burst of time, and then take what you learn from that and kind of integrate it going on. So those are the two things that I'm particularly excited about doing over the next 12 months, as well as just kind of continue to expand and just get the word out about the importance of really giving attention to your relationship.
I love the idea of the 300 questions in your book. The reason why I was laughing was because at first I thought it was you asking yourself 300 questions. Oh, that's a lot of questions. That's a very long question. But actually doing that with a partner, it creates like a deep understanding, doesn't it? Where you can get to a place of where like, oh, I thought I knew this about you. Or I thought that your answer would be this, but actually it's this. And
Absolutely.
helps with
That's it. You can do it over, I mean, it's one a day, you could do it a few a month. I mean, it's not that you have to sit down but the idea is that actually it's just what you said. It's like, and that's one of the lovely moments in couples therapy when someone says, oh, I didn't know that about you. Or, I've heard you say that before, but this time I'm hearing it, it's got a different energy, it's got a different vibe about it. It's just that. It's just that.
You're somebody who does a lot. So
Oh,
you do. You've got you from what you've just told me, it is a lot, and it's even more that you're doing. How do you fit it all in, and what happens when you don't?
okay. Well, what I've learned more and more is coming back to that experience at the GP
Mhm,
is about asking for support,
mhm,
right? So, and I just think that's super important. You know, I have been the person that feels that you can do everything
yeah,
by yourself, and you can't. It's that's the road to kind of burnout and frustration. So there is something about reaching out and asking for support when there are things that are not my sweet spot and I don't know how to do. But also I think there's something about sometimes you're not going to get it all done. And just what it's like to just put the laptop down or close the book and say, you know, that's enough for today. That's enough for this week. And something will have to be kind of carried over, and that's okay. So I think those are the kind of things that I would say is asking for support, but actually no, just noticing that actually maybe sometimes things have to be that things will be completed, but maybe to kind of let go of the reins and let and that patience I was talking about earlier, you know, just practicing that patience for myself. I think those are the things. Those are the things.
yeah. Oh, that's really, really good. What advice would you give to a woman who wants to go to her next level but isn't sure where or how to start?
Well, I would say really listen, just really listen to yourself.
Mm,
Don't really just listen to your gut. I see often in couples dynamics, and sometimes what happens, I think we still live in a very patriarchal world. And what I sometimes hear is women checking in with other, in this case, it might be their partner, but there's something about checking in with somebody else to validate what they want to do. And I think there's something about really beginning to learn to trust oneself,
yeah.
right? And really listen to that kind of your own inner voice rather than checking out. Because you check out with other people, you're going to get 10 different opinions. Some will be on your side, some won't be on your side. And then it just, what it does is create confusion. And then when confusion comes, you stay stuck, you don't do anything. And so even if it's just a baby step, even if it's just a baby step, I would, you know, if they're wondering what that next step is, do something symbolically to represent what that thing might thing might be, you know, and really my advice is listen, is learn to see what it feels like to prioritize yourself and listen to yourself.
Yeah, that's really, really, really good advice. Finally, I want to ask you what gives you a meant for more mindset?
Mm. I I think that, and so my biggest belief is that we as human beings are all born divine, right? And whether you believe it's God, the universe, the divine, I don't know, whatever has resonance. For me, it is God, but for whatever the resonance is, I think we are all made with kind of gifts, talents, abilities, and you know, part of therapy is about recognizes the things that got in the way that have created a barrier from us really knowing that reality. and what the experience is. But that's my starting point. And so with that starting point, it's like, well, who am I not to? Who am I not to have more? You know, if I was born with an innate goodness, then why would I not get up and want more? And want more out of life. So that's what I would say.
Love that. Sandra, I just want to acknowledge you. And by acknowledging you, I want to say that what an amazing woman you are, first and foremost. I want to acknowledge the fact that you, in helping yourself, you then wanted to share that with others so you can help others to grow and be their best. And not only grow and be their best individually, but grow and be their best with others. And so that sense of community that you've created in terms of people in their relationships, and I'm sure just people in general, it's just been an amazing thing to do. And I'm
Oh,
sure
thank
it's
you.
not easy. You're welcome. And I'm sure it's not easy, but you do it, and you do it with a sense of love and commitment to doing the work, not only well, but to a point where it really helps people grow to be their best, and then they can then pay it forward and help others as well. So thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for being you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You're welcome. Please tell us where our listeners can connect with you online.
Okay, so everything's under the name of Sandra Harewood. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me under that name. I'm on Facebook. You can find me under that name. And also my website, which is sdhcounselling.co.uk. But if you Google Sandra Harewood Counselling, you'll find it. And on my website, I've got lots of blogs on relationships. And I also have a quiz that you can take to find out your relationship archetype, to see how you are showing up in relationships, what's your gifts, and what might be challenges and things that you may need to do to stretch you. And there are other downloads you can access as well for free on my website too.
Wonderful. And I'll share that with you guys in the show notes. So with
Okay.
that, that's it for today's episode. And I just want to say thank you so much again, Sandra. And guys,
Thank you.
thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. And I shall see you in the next one. But before I go, don't forget to comment, share, and subscribe. And I shall see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. For more about me, what I do, check out my website, nextlevelcoachinggroup.com, where you can also download my free Release Your Mindset Blocks guide. You can also follow me on Instagram at Next Level Coaching Group, or on Facebook at Next Level Lounge. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating and review. Thanks. See you on the next one.